What's up, everyone? We are diving back into the multiverse today for another epic. What if Naruto inherited the true Fox legacy and build own harem part 3? If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. Kankuro stood where he was and stared at Temari's bedroom door before taking a seat back on the couch. Inside Temari's room, she was leaning against the door and heard Kankuro sit on her couch and sighs. He's still having trouble accepting our relationship, Temari whispered before an image of her kids appeared in her mind. I wonder how he'll react when meeting his niece and nephew. She went to pick out a spare outfit from her closet before going into the shower. Back in Konoha, Sakura and Ino have just finished their warm-up exercise and now stand facing each other. Tsunade stood on the side with her arms crossed under her chest. All right, the first to land a hit on the other wins. Are you two ready? Yes. Both young kunoichis said in unison. Then you may begin, Tsunade said, and immediately Ino began weaving through hand signs. Water style. Liquid bullets. She declared as she spit out several spheres of water at Sakura. Sakura dodges it by jumping into the air. She then reaches into her ninja pouch and throws a kunai at Ino, but it lands in front of her. Your aim is off, forehead. Ino mocked before looking closely at the kunai and noticing the explosive tag wrapped around it. The explosive tag detonate and covered Ino in black smoke. Sakura landed a few feet from the smoke, her senses on full alert knowing that Ino won't lose this easily. However, she heard a coughing sound, and as the smoke cleared to reveal a coughing Ino, her jaw dropped. Are you kidding me? You got me, forehead, Ino said with a smirk. What the hell, Ino? Sakura said, still shocked that she won this easily. Careful, forehead, a bird could nest in your mouth, Ino told her smugly. Sakura closed her mouth and glared at her best friend. She was about to speak when a shiver ran up her spine. What was? Sakura suddenly felt vibrations underneath her feet and jumped back just as a hand erupted from the ground. Almost had you there, forehead. Ino's voice can be heard coming from the ground. Another hand emerged from the ground before pulling the rest of its body up to reveal Ino. A shadow clone, Sakura muttered as she watched the real Ino dust herself off. She looked back to her clone, who nodded at her before charging at Sakura, who raised her arms in front of her. By the way, Tsunade began, causing Ino's clone to stop, and all three looked at her. Blocking counts as a hit, so for example, if Sakura were to block Ino's punches with any part of her body, then Ino is the victor. What? Sakura shouted in disbelief. Is there a problem, Sakura? Tsunade asked, grinning. Sakura knew what Tsunade was doing. She was testing her ability to adapt to the situation. No, milady, Sakura said before adjusting her battle stance. Then let's continue, the real Ino said, and she made a cross hand seal and summoned 5 shadow clones. Get ready, forehead, all of the Inos said in unison. Oh, come on, Sakura whined as all of Ino's shadow clones charged at her. Sakura gathered chakra into her right fist and punched the ground, shattering the field. Ino's clones fell into the fissures and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Ino steadied herself before weaving through hand signs. Earth style. Earth column. She slammed her palms on the ground and numerous pillars made of earth shot up from the fissures and surrounded Sakura. This won't hold me, Sakura said as prepared to punch the wall of pillars, but stopped when she felt the same shiver from before run up her spine. She jumped back as several pillars erupted from the ground in front of her. Almost had you again, Ino said from atop one of the pillars surrounding Sakura. You're not getting me that easily, Ino pig, Sakura mocked as she surveyed her surroundings. She wasn't sure if the Ino that was on top of the wall was a shadow clone. Ino was smiling smugly as if she already had this won. Sakura gritted her teeth and focused her chakra on her right hand before slamming her fist on the ground. As expected, Ino jumped into the air as the columns collapsed. Sakura grabbed a large rock about half her size and hurled it at Ino. Unable to avoid it, Ino took the hit but immediately turned to smoke. A shadow clone, Sakura thought as she scanned the area for Ino, when suddenly mud started pouring out of the cracks in the ground. Reacting quickly, Sakura jumped around the rising mud into new ground. She watched as the mud rose into the air and took on the form of Ino. Since when can Ino do this? Sakura said in both shock and awe as the giant mud Ino raised its fist and brought it down on top of Sakura, but she jumped back to avoid it. However, as the giant fist collided with the ground, a giant wave of mud formed around the impact point and spread outwards. Oh no! Sakura thought as the giant wave closed in on her and cast a shadow over her. Sakura gathered chakra to both her hands and clapped them in front of her, creating a shockwave that dispersed the wave of mud. The mud giant raised its hand and Sakura prepared to counter when she felt the same shiver again. She ducked down just as a ball of water rushed above her and hit the giant mud Ino. Missed again. Ino whispered as she was hidden between two pillars. She watched Sakura attack the shadow clone that launched the water jutsu. Ino closed her eyes and focused on sensing Sakura's chakra. Nothing was out of the ordinary except that her reserves are running low. But then she sensed it. As Sakura's reserves are being depleted, she was beginning to draw on another source. It wasn't much, but Ino knew what this chakra was. Naruto. She thought as she remembered how when she and Naruto shared their first kiss they were both covered in the nine-tailed fox's chakra and some of it seeped into her body. So Naruto-kun has begun his courtship of forehead. She whispered before making a familiar hand sign. I guess I better let her know who's the dominant vixen. Mind transfer jutsu. Sakura suddenly stopped and Ino's shadow clone disappeared. Sakura was about to say when her eyes widened in shock. This is a shadow clone. She thought before hearing a crumbling noise and turned to the direction of her body to see Sakura looking down at her body, her left hand extended out as she moved one of the columns. I win, Ino pig. Sakura grinned victoriously as she leaned down to touch Ino when Ino's body moved and bit her hand. Ah, son of a. Sakura pried her hand out of Ino's mouth and held it close. I thought you couldn't move. She looked to see that Ino's body was covered in a yellow outline. What the? I believe it's my win forehead. Sakura's shadow clone walked up behind her with her eyes glowing yellow. She undid her jutsu and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Really, pig? Biting my hand, Sakura said while healing her hand. Oh come on, I didn't bite you that hard, did I? Ino asked while standing up. She tasted something odd. I see you're using the strawberry lotion I lend you, she said as she grimaced at the taste. Doesn't taste like strawberries though. Of course the taste was much worse since her taste buds are now more sensitive. Sakura finished healing her hand and watched Ino. How did Ino do that? I didn't think she was able to use her clan techniques while possessing someone's body. She thought as she heard footsteps approaching. Well done, you two, Tsunade said as she approached them. I see you two made good use of the shadow clone technique, and Sakura. Sakura looked at Tsunade's smiling face. Well done in maintaining your clone long enough to trap Ino, but it looks like she had a trick up her sleeve. She complimented but took note of the ability Ino used. She would have to ask Inoichi about it when she told him about Ino. Thank you, milady, I was careless. Sakura acknowledged her mistake, disappointment clear on her face. Ino saw this and smiled. Still a sore looser forehead. She mocked, which caused Sakura to glare at her, but Ino just shrugged. Hey, it's true, I've always lost to you, and sure I complained, but I kept training and improving on my shortcomings. Ino grinned as an idea formed in her head. I also had Naruto as my training partner. This caught Sakura by surprise. You trained with Naruto? Yep. He helps me improve my taijutsu, ninjutsu, and I help him improve his book smarts. Ino tells her. I'm surprised you managed to get him to sit still. Sakura said, a smile forming along the corners of her lips. Ino rolled her eyes. It wasn't easy, believe me, but we managed to make it work. Ino made a deal with Naruto that if he learned the academy basics again by the end of the week, then she'll reward him by being his personal maid for a day. That definitely motivated him, and he mastered the academy basics in under 3 days. So Ino had to keep her word and be Naruto's maid for an entire day, but Naruto as always surprised her, for when she entered his apartment he was dressed in a tight white dress shirt that showed off his muscular upper body, navy blue dress pants and white socks. He was reading a scroll and looking very professional. He then looked up to her and smiled. The way he smiled caused Ino to shudder. He was definitely playing the part of master perfectly. Ino went to cook breakfast for him but was surprised when he insisted he help her make it. It didn't end there. They ate breakfast together, although Ino was sitting on his lap, and they fed each other. They washed the dishes together, cleaned the house together. It wasn't what was supposed to happen. Ino assumed that she would be the one to service Naruto, but leave it to Naruto to not do anything by the book. It wasn't until Naruto wanted to take a bath that Ino's heart started pounding. As Ino went to prepare him a bath, she kept thinking if Naruto was going to ask her to join him or ask her to wash his back. It hasn't been that long since she and Naruto made love for the first time, and even less time when Temari and Hinata joined them. So the thought of being intimate with her mate and just being the two of them made her nervous, but her more primal urges are overriding her nervousness and she feels like she might pounce on Naruto the instant he steps into the bathroom. But when Naruto walked in, he was fully dressed, and just when Ino thought she was going to be asked to undress him, Naruto said that he'll undress himself. However, the way he teased Ino as he undressed, slowly making Ino feel very hot and turned on as she watched Naruto's amazing body be on display for her. When he was finished, Ino was panting and sweat ran down her forehead as she was struggling to control herself, but the next words Naruto spoke sealed the deal. "Don't you want to get out of those clothes if you're feeling uncomfortable, Ino-chan?" That was it for Ino. She practically tore off the maid outfit and tackled Naruto. "Oh god, you didn't." Sakura's shriek brought Ino back to reality as she noticed Sakura look at her aghast and Tsunade smirking. "What? You gave yourself to Naruto?" Sakura shouted. "What?" Ino shrieked. "Oh my Ino, is that the true reason you've been different lately? You've finally blossomed into a woman." Tsunade joked, which caused Ino's face to turn red. "Milady." Ino was mortified that even Tsunade assumed she gave herself to Naruto, which was true. I can't believe you would sleep with Naruto of all people so easily." Sakura said. "Wait, you think I'm that easy?" Ino was disgusted that Sakura would think she would open her legs to anyone. "Well, with that body of yours you must be getting some right." Tsunade teased. "Milady, I don't need to hear that from you of all people." Ino shouted at Tsunade, which caused her to laugh. "So how good in bed is Naruto? Is he a gently or very passionate lover?" Tsunade continued to tease, which caused Ino's already red face to become even redder. "Oh, lighten up, Ino, there's nothing to be embarrassed." She wrapped her arm around Ino's shoulder. "It's perfectly fine to engage in a little fun every now and then. I'm guessing with a partner like Naruto he must keep you up all night, am I right?" Ino gritted her teeth and gently removed Tsunade's arm. "Milady, if we're done with today's training then I should go meet up with my team." "Don't be like that, Ino. Come on, spill the details. A vixen like you must drive Naruto wild." Tsunade said, choosing her words carefully, and gauged Ino's reaction. As expected, she watched Ino stiffen a bit before speaking. "Milady, is the training over?" she said monotone. Tsunade frowned at her tone. "Yes, you did win. But first let me examine you to make sure you're okay. If this is some ploy to grope me, I swear." Ino threatened as Tsunade's hands glowed green and checked her body. "You have nothing I already have," Tsunade said as she placed her hands over Ino's stomach and stopped. What's the matter?" Ino asked nervously, fearing that Tsunade may have found out about her giving birth. "Your stomach is so toned," Tsunade complimented, causing Ino to faceplant. "I thought I said no, feeling me up." Ino shouted angrily. "I'm just noting what's obvious," Tsunade defended as she finished inspecting Ino. "Well, off you go. Don't want to keep your teammates waiting." Ino raised an eyebrow at how Tsunade said teammates, but shrugged. As she and Sakura left, Tsunade stood there for a few moments in thought before disappearing in a puff of smoke and reappearing in her office. She sat on her chair and let out a loud sigh. "Ino's body is suddenly different, and I don't just mean physically." Tsunade rubbed her forehead before looking at her paperwork for today. "I need to speak with Inoichi while I have the chance." In another part of the village, Kakashi was reading his book when he heard his name being called. "Kakashi-sensei." He looked up from his book to see Naruto jogging towards him. "Naruto, what can I do for you?" Kakashi asked. He knew Naruto always asks him for extra training. "Sensei, you were an Anbu before, right?" Naruto asks. "Yes, why do you ask?" asked Kakashi suspiciously. "Do you know any Anbu that are from the Yamanaka clan?" Naruto asked, which surprised Kakashi. "Why would you want to know that?" Kakashi asked as Naruto scratched the back of his head nervously. Well, Naruto looked at Kakashi and knew that whatever excuse he made to cover his real reason wouldn't work with Kakashi, but he tried anyway. "I'm just curious to know if anyone from even great clans can join, and I've been wanting to ask you this since before I left on my training." Kakashi raised an eyebrow but decided to play along. No, I don't think there are any members of the Yamanaka in the Anbu Corps since I was last in the Anbu Corps. He answered, but he can think of another group that would have a member of the Yamanaka clan. Naruto thought for a moment before speaking. What about Root? I guess they would have someone from the Yamanaka clan. Kakashi answered calmly, but red flags were being raised. Is there anything else? No, I think that's all I wanted to ask, thanks sensei. Naruto thanked Kakashi as he turned around and walked away from him. Kakashi sighed before closing his book. So much for catching up on my reading. He then disappeared in a puff of smoke. Back at the Hokage Tower, Tsunade was sitting on her chair staring at a shocked Inoichi. Are you serious, milady? Inoichi asked, not certain if what he heard is true. I'm afraid so, Inoichi. Tsunade said. But how can Ino use the fourth Hokage's jutsu? His eyes widen as he realized something. Naruto. It must have been Naruto who taught her. Tsunade blinked. She didn't tell him about Naruto yet. How do you figure? I know for a fact that Naruto is the fourth son and only he could have possibly taught Ino that jutsu, but how did he learn it and why teach Ino? Hiyashi asked out loud, knowing that Tsunade has activated the special seals on the room to prevent anyone from eavesdropping. That's what we're trying to figure out, she said, causing Inoichi to blink. Inoichi said, confused. Tsunade then proceeded to tell him the rest, and Inoichi was at a loss for words. Hinata too, just what is going on between them? His mind began to think of what those three were up to, and one of those thoughts involved a certain activity that caused him to shake his head. Inoichi, has Ino been acting odd recently, or is there a change in her behavior? Tsunade asked and waited for Inoichi to answer. Inoichi thought for a bit before answering. Well, she's dating Naruto. Before she wouldn't even consider him and thought he was annoying. Tsunade's eyes widened before she smiled. So it's true, she whispered, but Inoichi heard. You knew, milady? Inoichi asked. Not exactly. Ino and Sakura were discussing their training when the subject of Naruto came up. I teased Ino about it, but I never would have guessed it was true. Way to go, brat. Tsunade gushed. Milady. Inoichi spoke, gaining Tsunade's attention. Oh right. Sorry about that. Tsunade apologized, her cheeks turning red. Inoichi, I need you to keep a close eye on Ino in case she does anything else that's out of character for her. Yes, milady. Inoichi agreed as he stood up and headed for the door while Tsunade deactivated the special seals. As soon as Inoichi opened the door, Kakashi was on the other side about to knock. Oh, Inoichi, Kakashi said as he looked behind him to Tsunade, anticipating what he's about to say. She nodded. So Lady Tsunade has told you the situation. Good, because I believe it just got more complicated. What do you mean? Tsunade asked as Kakashi closed the door and she immediately reactivated the special seals. Well, Naruto came to ask me if there were any members of the Yamanaka clan in the Anbu Corps. Kakashi started and noticed Inoichi's eyes widen. Tsunade gritted her teeth. So that old war hulk has caught wind of what's going on. Inoichi, do you know who it might be? The person that comes to mind is Fu Yamanaka. Inoichi told them as he recalled that during breakfast Ino asked him the same thing. I believe he's spying on Ino. And she managed to discover him. That's pretty impressive. Kakashi praised Inoichi's daughter. We must make sure Danzo doesn't find out anything more. Since Naruto and Ino are aware of Fu, it'll be safe to assume they'll be extra cautious, which makes it a lot harder for us to find out what's going on between them. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose in irritation. The next thing she's about to say might be hard for Inoichi to take. Inoichi. Yes, milady. When I was training with Ino and Sakura, I managed to scan Ino's body with my medical jutsu and well. Tsunade scratched the back of her head nervously. What is it? Is Ino okay? Inoichi asked worriedly. Ino's fine, it's just her body is producing Brea's milk. Tsunade said and awaited Inoichi's reaction. Inoichi took in Tsunade's words and then an image of a Nud Ino and Naruto flashed in his mind. Naruto was smiling evilly as he looked down at a smiling Ino whose back was to him and his arms wrapped around her with his hands resting on her pregnant stomach, his face turning bright red as his expression was emotionless. He then took a deep breath and exhaled, his face returning to normal. Excuse me for a moment, he said as he closed his eyes and started to concentrate. Soon the image of walking down the village appeared in his mind as he was seeing through someone's eyes. He saw Shikamaru, Choji and Asuma waving, and soon the person he was seeing through picked up their pace. The person was talking with them until the vision changed to seeing an Anbu hidden among the shadows. Fu. Inoichi thought before realizing his mistake. Suddenly the image was gone and he found himself in a dark void. What are you doing, Daddy? Ino's voice echoed around him. Ino, I can explain. Inoichi said as a giant Ino appeared in front of him. I thought I told you to not use the Yamanaka clan's mind link to spy on me. The giant Ino said angrily as she raised her hand. There's a good reason for this, sweetie. Inoichi tried to explain, but his daughter was having none of it. She brought her hand down on top of him, but just before she crushed him, an image of two kids flashed in their minds, calling out to someone. Ga. Inoichi fell back and taking his seat with him. Inoichi. Tsunade calls out his name as she stands from her seat. I'm okay, milady. Inoichi assures her as he stands up. What happened? Kakashi asks. I linked with Ino's mind to secretly see what she was doing through her eyes, but then I saw Fu spying on her through the point of view of something, and that's when Ino caught me. Inoichi explained as he tried to wrap his mind around what else he saw and felt. Also, just before Ino expelled me from her mind, I saw an image of two baby foxes and they were calling out for something. Tsunade and Kakashi glanced at each other before looking back at Inoichi. Inoichi, I think for now you shouldn't try to read Ino's thoughts. But you could read the thoughts of another, she said, gaining Inoichi's attention. What do you mean, milady? Inoichi asked as Tsunade smiled. Meanwhile, Ino was walking calmly through the village. Her sensei had given them the day off and she decided to go find Naruto. In truth, she wanted to go to her kits since they called for her, but with her being watched she couldn't sneak out, and she can't talk to Naruto telepathically since her father might be listening despite her warning. She groaned internally. No doubt Dad would want to have a word with me later. She spotted a tuft of blonde spiky hair among the crowd and made her way towards it. Sure enough, it was Naruto and he seemed to be talking to Sakura. Naruto, forehead. Both turned around to see Ino walking towards them. Hello, pig. Sakura greeted, annoyed. Hi, Ino-chan. Naruto waved happily as Ino stood in front of them. What do you want, pig? Sakura asked, annoyed at Ino's unwanted company. There's something I need to talk to Naruto about. Ino told her. Is it something you can't say in front of me? Sakura asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes, Ino said through gritted teeth. She so didn't need this now. Fine, I'll see you later, Naruto. Sakura said goodbye to Naruto and walked past Ino but muttered pig loud enough for her to hear. Ino glared at Sakura's retreating back and contemplated whether to use her jutsu on her, but decided not to since she was being watched. She'll get her back later. So what were you and forehead talking about? She just wanted to ask me if I can train with her. Naruto tells her. Hey, so she took what I said seriously. Ino smiled. What was that? Naruto asked her, confused. I'll tell you later, for now let's find a place to talk. Ino suggested as they went inside a sweet shop. Fu watched them enter the sweet shop and then come out eating some dango. He didn't see two small kids laughing as they exited the same sweet shop. The two kids ducked behind an alley and sensed Fu's chakra getting farther away and sighed in relief before turning back into Naruto and Ino. Our clones should keep him busy for a while, Naruto said before he and Ino teleported to their den. Hinata was feeding Katsu and Katsuo when they appeared. Naruto-kun, Ino-san, good morning. She greeted them. Morning, Hinata. Ino greeted as she spotted her kits near Hinata, who looked at their mother with bright smiles as she began TP disrobe and turn into a vixen. Morning, Hinata-chan. Naruto greeted his mate as he leaned down to kiss her lips. So Ino-chan, what did you want to talk about? Ino looked up from breastfeeding her kits. Well, my dad linked with my mind to spy on me, and just before I kicked him out he felt and saw Inoki and Inoka. Naruto and Hinata's eyes widen. So he knows! Exclamation mark quote. Naruto shouted, causing the three kits that are sleeping to groan before crying. Naruto immediately bent down and scooped them up in his arms. Hey, it's okay. That was just daddy being loud. Don't cry, everything is alright. Naruto cooed as he tried calming them. Oh crap. Temari-chan is going to kill me, he thought as he continued to calm them. To his relief, they start to calm down, but it's short-lived as they start wailing. I am so dead. You bet you're as you are. Temari's voice echoed in all their minds and her kit's wails began to die down to whimpers. A twister formed in a corner of the cave before fatting and revealing Temari in her human form wearing her ninja attire. Temari-chan, hey. Naruto looked at her nervously. He feels the three kits in his arms squirm as they reached for their mother. She walks up to them and caresses their cheeks. They lean into her touch and lick her hands. There, Mama's here. She cooed as she took them from Naruto. They snuggled against her bosom, wanting to be fed. Sorry you three, but you can't get milk from a clone. She handed them back to Naruto, which the kits protested. Hey, don't be like that. Mama is busy right now, but I promise we'll spend time together later. Hate to put a damper on your plans, but we've got a problem. Ino said, gaining her attention as she told her what happened. Great. This morning just keeps getting better and better. Temari pinched the bridge of her nose in annoyance. We all knew that this would happen eventually, and we've prepared for it. Naruto stated as they all closed their eyes. I've talked to Kakashi-sensei if there was anyone from the Yamanaka clan in the Anbu Corps, but he didn't know. I'm going to ask Granny next. No need. I asked my father and he knows who, but it isn't good. Ino began as all eyes were on her. His name is Fu and he's part of a splinter cell of the Anbu called Root. The leader of the group's name is Danzo Shimura. Naruto and Hinata's eyes widened in shock while Temari raised an eyebrow. Okay. Judging by your reactions, he's someone serious. Temari said, looking at Naruto and Hinata. You have no idea. If he's onto us, then we stand to lose everything if we're discovered. Ino looks down at her kits who have fallen asleep in her arms. Not gonna happen. This guy has no idea who he's dealing with. He's going to learn what happens when you deal with the Uzumakis. Believe it, Naruto declared while holding on to the three kits who looked up to their father curiously. The girls smiled before bursting into laughter. You got that right, Ino agreed as she stood beside him followed by Temari and Hinata. Oh, before I forget, Naruto-kun, do you want to come over for dinner again tomorrow? Will your dad be there? He asked. Yes, Ino answered and saw him cringe before sighing. All right, Ino raised an eyebrow. Just like that, you're not going to try to get out of this. No, this was going to happen sooner or later. No sense in delaying it, besides it'll make you happy if your dad and I are in good terms. He said smiling. Ino's eyes widened in surprise before a warm feeling filled her heart. I should have known. She smiled before standing on her tiptoes and planting a kiss on his cheek. I think you should get back to wooing forehead, with things the way they are, who knows when you might have time for her. You're right, I better go. He kissed each of his vixens on the lips before kissing his kits on their heads. He handed the three kits in his arms to Temari's clone, then disappeared. Oh, I almost forgot. Ino gently placed her kits down and placed the tips of her index and middle fingers on their foreheads. Her eyes started glowing, followed by Inoki's and Inoka's before returning to normal. What was that for? Temari asked as Ino picked up her kits. Just making sure my father can't connect with their minds, at least for now. Ino explained. Meanwhile, Sakura is doing one-finger push-ups with her right hand, and a boulder twice her size strapped to her back. 995,996,997,998,999, 1000. She then switched to her left hand and started again. 1, 2, 3. She continued this until she completed another 1,001 fingered push-ups. Sakura stood up and untied the boulder from her waist and tossed it a few feet into the air. Giving herself enough time to do a handstand and then extended her right foot and left hand out just as the boulder landed on her left foot. She carefully balanced the boulder and started doing one-handed handstand push-ups. She did 1,000 before switching to her other hand. She then did a front flip and caught the boulder with her right hand as she was on her feet, before setting it down with a thud. She wiped the sweat from her brow and leaned against the boulder. I wonder what Ino wanted to talk with Naruto about. She then remembered the conversation Ino and Tsunade had about Ino giving herself to Naruto. Her faces turns red at the mental image of Naruto and Ino being that intimate. She shook her head to get the image out of her head. I can't believe Ino and Naruto are in that kind of relationship. She brought her right hand up and touched her lips. But the kiss. Sakura recalled the kiss she shared with Naruto and how it ignited something within. The kiss was everything she had ever dreamt it would be, except that it was with Naruto instead of Sasuke. Sasuke. She whispered his name as she began to recall her recent encounter with him. What's going on with you, Sasuke-kun? She thought as she hugged herself when she remembered his cold stare. Sakura-chan. Sakura turned her head around and saw Naruto jogging towards her. Naruto. She turned her body around to face Naruto as he stood in front of her. What are you doing here and where's Ino? Ino had something she had to do and I wanted to see if you wanted to train. Naruto explained. Didn't she have something to tell you? Sakura asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, she told me what she had to say and then left. Naruto answered as he started stretching. So what do you have in mind? She asked as she crossed her arms. We're going to start off with some sparring. Naruto said as he got into a taijutsu stance followed by Sakura. Don't hold back this time, Sakura-chan, give me everything you've got. Fine. Sakura slammed her fist on the ground causing it to shatter and crumble. Whoa. Naruto could barely keep his balance on the crumbling ground. Sakura wasn't finished yet as she lifted the large boulder she was using earlier in front of her and punched it, shattering it to pieces and sending them towards Naruto. Oh crap. Being unable to dodge, he was impaled by the rock pieces. Sakura eyed him suspiciously before turning around and throwing a punch which barely missed Naruto's face as the Naruto behind her disappeared in a puff of smoke. Yikes. He crouched down and tackled Sakura away from the battered area into a clear one. They both rolled on the ground trying to overpower and pin the other. Eventually Naruto managed to pin Sakura underneath him. Gotcha. Naruto grinned as he watched Sakura squirm underneath him. Get off. Sakura ordered as she tried to break free from his grip but was unable to. Why can't I break free? She thought as she used her monstrous strength to push Naruto away, but he seemed to easily hold her down. Is this it, Sakura-chan? Naruto began. I thought Ba-chan taught you how to use her monster strength. He mocked, causing Sakura's left eye to twitch. What was that? Sakura asked with anger in her voice. I said, is this the extent of your training with Ba-chan? He mocked, knowing what will happen to him when she frees herself. That's it. Sakura brings her leg up and kicks Naruto with all her strength, pushing him off her and into the air. She then pushes off the ground and towards Naruto. Baka. Sakura aims to kick Naruto, but he grabs her foot and using the momentum of her kick to turn her around and throw her back towards the ground. Naruto winces as he watches Sakura crash against the ground. Maybe I overdid it a bit. As soon as he lands, he heads towards where Sakura is, and as soon as he gets close enough, he notices that she's unconscious and rushes towards her. Sakura-chan. He calls out to her in concern, but as he gets closer, a hand emerges from the ground and grabs his right ankle. What the? He's then dragged into the ground, only leaving his head. I can't move. Naruto flails his head around. He then watches Sakura emerge from the ground in front of him. Earth style. Headhunter jutsu. Sakura said while grinning as she looked down at Naruto. Hey, good one, Sakura-chan. Naruto complimented while grinning. But this won't hold me, and how do you know this jutsu? Sakura rolled her eyes. Duh, I doubt anything could. She then sat down in front of him and flicked his forehead. I know you better than that, and I asked Kakashi-sensei to teach me it since one of my nature affinities is earth. Cool. Do you know any other jutsus? Naruto asked curiously. Sakura scratched her cheek sheepishly. Actually no, that was the only other elemental jutsu I know. Naruto watched Sakura for a minute before a lightbulb went off in his head. Hey, maybe that's what you need to do, learn new jutsus. Sakura blinked at this. I don't think that's it. But it's a start. Maybe once you learn a couple more jutsus we can start figuring out what you're best at. Naruto told her. That makes sense. Sakura thought. Well, I know I'm good at close combat. Then let's build on that, and work on a way to fight someone who fights from a distance. Naruto added. Wow, Naruto, when did you get so smart? Sakura asked, surprised that he had an idea that made sense. Hey, I take offense to that. Naruto said, annoyed, but his smile said otherwise. I'm just teasing, you're still the same baka you've always been. Sakura corrected herself while smiling widely. Let's go to the library and see if they have any earth and water elemental jutsus. Sounds like a date. Naruto said sheepishly. Naruto, this isn't a date. Sakura said annoyed before getting up and walking away. Hey wait Sakura-chan, you forgot to dig me out. Sakura-chan. Naruto called out to a retreating Sakura as he struggled to get free. After Naruto freed himself, he and Sakura went to the library and went to a special section for shinobi where they found jutsu scrolls ranging from Genin to Jonin. Where are the Ambu and Hokage level jutsu scrolls? Naruto asked looking at the different scrolls. They're not here Naruto, and why would they? Sakura asked as she picked up some Chunin level earth and water jutsu scrolls. Do you honestly believe the Hokage's personal jutsus would be here for anyone to use? You have a point there. Naruto admitted as he wouldn't want just anyone to use his jutsus. So what kind of jutsus do you have there? Ones that deal with close and long-range combat. Sakura answered him without taking her eyes away from the scroll she's reading. A pile of scrolls sits on top of the desk she's using. Naruto watched as Sakura read through scroll after scroll, a determined look in her eyes as she tries to find the right jutsu for herself. Naruto couldn't help but smile. That's the Sakura-chan I know and love. He thought before picking up a scroll and joining Sakura. They spent the remainder of the morning going over countless scrolls until lunchtime. Naruto stretched his arms out as he and Sakura exited the library. It feels great to get some fresh air, he said in relief. Naruto, we've only been in the library for a few hours. Sakura told him deadpanned. Yeah well I'm not used to being around books for that long. Naruto told her. Hey let's go get some ramen. Naruto I'm not. Sakura was cut off as Naruto started dragging her to Ichiraku's. Meanwhile in an unknown location. Sasuke, if you plan to take out the village elders you're going to have to deal with their shinobi. Madara tells him, if they get in my way then I'll just cut them down. Sasuke says simply, your team won't be enough to take on all their shinobis, even that friend of yours didn't fare well against that Hyuga girl. Madara said having heard from Shin himself how Hinata bested him, this information could prove useful in getting rid of Shin if he becomes a problem. Sasuke thought about what Madara had said, for Shin to be defeated by Hinata is very significant. He was now starting to reconsider giving up on her. She's even more powerful than I could have ever imagined. He then recalled her amazing body, but then he remembered the Genjutsu battle and how he was outmatched. If you join Akatsuki, we'll share the Biju's power with you. Madara offered. Sasuke was silent for a moment before speaking. Fine. Sasuke accepted as he stood up and left. He made his way through the halls until he found the room he was looking for. Inside are his teammates, Suigetsu sitting on a chair, Jugo leaning against the wall, Karen sitting on a bed and Shin laying on the floor with his hands behind his head. They all looked to Sasuke as he closed the door behind him. Shin. Yo. Shin replied by raising his foot. I need you to finish explaining to us how your sword work. Sasuke says. Shin pushes himself onto his feet. Alright. He summons Blanc and Nor. You already know what Blanc and Nor can do, so I'll just continue from where I left off and tell you the drawbacks. Wait, you're going to tell us their weakness? Karen asked, surprised that he would do such a thing. I see no harm in it. Shin said unconcerned. Even though Blanc can absorb chakra, at the same time enhance it, then fire it back, it can't do both at the same time. So if you're absorbing attacks you can't attack yourself? Suigetsu asked with interest. Basically, and when I attack with say a lightning style attack it can be countered with its opposite element which is wind and for that brief instance Blanc's abilities are nullified. He explained. As for Nor, if it's hit with a physical attack that's covered in chakra, then Nor can't absorb the kinetic energy. Furthermore, if it's an elemental chakra like lightning or wind then Nor suffers damage. So you're not invincible after all. Karen smirks, but to her surprise Shin smiled. I'd be disappointed if I was, and besides these swords prove it. He raises Blanc and Nor above his head. If I suffered any physical injuries and I use Nor to enhance my physical abilities then there is a chance that I can make it worse and if I have a serious injury it's impossible. Everyone stared at him in silence before Sasuke spoke. Shin. Who are you? Blanc and Nor disappeared and Shin smiled widely. Well if you must know. Everyone's eyes widen in disbelief. You're joking right? Karen blurted out. Meh, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, that's up to you. Shin answered simply. More silence ensued before it was broken when Sasuke started chuckling before erupting into full-blown laughter. Sasuke-kun? Karen asked nervously as Sasuke's laughter unnerved her. Sasuke laughed for a few more minutes looking down and holding on to his knees. His laughter began to quiet down and he raised his head to look at Shin with a psychotic look. This is just perfect. With you here there's nothing to stand in the way of my revenge. Pretty much, but I also have my own agenda to complete. Shin added. And what would that be? Karen asked raising an eyebrow. You'll see soon enough, was all Shin told Karen. Back at Konoha, Naruto exited from Ichiraku, a satisfied look on his face. Man, did that hit the spot? He said loudly as he patted his full stomach. Why do you insist on eating ramen every single day? Sakura asked as she exited Ichiraku and stared at Naruto. Because ramen is the best food in the world. Naruto answered her happily. Haven't you ever had anything else? She asked curiously knowing the answer. Nope. Sakura rolled her eyes. You know Naruto, if you eat nothing but ramen then you're going to die really young. No way. I'm not going to die until I become Hokage. He declared. If you want to live that long then you need to start changing your diet, at least try to limit how much ramen you eat. Sakura suggested. Naruto thought for a moment before answering, I wouldn't even know what to try. Tell you what, I'll help introduce you to different foods. Sakura offered. And how are you going to do that? Naruto asked. By taking you to some of my favorite restaurants for starters, we'll find out what types of foods you enjoy. Sakura suggested. Now that definitely sounds like a date to me. Naruto grinned. Naruto, this isn't. Sakura cut herself off as an idea formed in her head. Okay. If you put effort into eating something besides ramen and cutting back on it, you can consider it a date. Sakura offered. Naruto thought for a minute. On one hand he gets to go on a date with Sakura, but on the other hand he has to cut back on his precious ramen. It was a no-brainer. You got a deal, Sakura-chan. I knew you would see it my way. Sakura smiled. Now let's go back to working on the jutsus we picked out for me. They both headed back to the training field to resume their training. Near the edge of the Land of Fire. We made it to the border of the Land of Fire. Kankuro said a little tired. The drama this morning and Tamari moving to live in Konoha wore him out. We should be there by this evening at the pace we're going. Tamari sighed. She wanted to go a little faster but her brother wouldn't be able to keep up with her. Hey, it's not my fault you're suddenly faster than me. Kankuro said. Tamari's abilities have increased all of a sudden and it seemed to have happened around the time she started dating Naruto. Why are you in such a hurry to get to Konoha anyway? You said the punk doesn't even know you're coming. It's called a surprise, you dumbass. Tamari told him annoyed as she headed into the forest. Why go through all this trouble for him? What if it doesn't work out or he dies on a mission and leaving you alone in an unfamiliar village? Kankuro said before he found himself pinned against a tree. Don't you dare say that. Tamari threatened with pure rage in her voice with a hint of sadness. Her right hand gripping Kankuro's neck. Kankuro struggled against Tamari's grip, his vision becoming blurry. Tamari. He croaked. Tamari released him and turned around as Kankuro gasped for breath. Of all the stupidest things you ever said, let's just hurry up, she said though gritted teeth as tries to keep her anger under control before jumping on top of a tree branch and continued the rest of the journey. What was that about? Kankuro asked out loud as he massaged his throat, before following Tamari. That idiot, how could he say something like that? Tamari thought as she jumped from tree to tree. Doesn't he remember what happened to Gaara? An image of Naruto's still body flashed through her mind. No. Tamari shook her head violently. I won't allow that to happen. Tamari-chan. Tamari heard Naruto's voice inside her head. Naruto-kun. What's wrong, Tamari-chan? I can feel that you're really upset, Naruto asks, his voice filled with worry. It's just something stupid, Kankuro said. Tamari explained as she started to calm down. It must have been something if it got you so upset. Naruto said. You have no idea. Yeah, well. Naruto's voice was suddenly cut off. Naruto-kun. Naruto. Tamari was on the verge of panicking as she started hyperventilating. I'm here, Tamari-chan. Baka. What the hell happened? Tamari demanded as she calmed down, but her heart is still pounding against her chest. I'm training with Sakura-chan right now and she's testing out her new jutsus on me. Whoa. Naruto explained. Tamari sighed. You should focus your attention on helping her. She's making an effort to improve herself. Not to mention this is a perfect chance for you to win some points with her. She teased. You're right. I better pay attention. I love you. Naruto said goodbye. I love you too. Tamari responded. Hey me. Who the? It's the clone you sent to see what was wrong with Akiko, and Hikaru. Speaking of whom they're fidgeting a lot, you're probably really stressed about something, right? The clone said in the original Temari's head. Tamari sighed. Can you calm them down? Afraid not. They're starting to sense that I'm not really you since I'm not emitting the distress. The clone answered. Alright, prepare to switch. Tamari said as she looked back to see if Kankuro was behind her, but as she turned her head forward, Kankuro finally caught up just in time to see Tamari disappear. What the? He rubbed his eyes just as the Temari's shadow clone appeared in the place Tamari was originally when Kankuro removed his hands away from his eyes. Am I seeing things? Kankuro asked himself as Temari's shadow clone speed off. Hey, wait up. He chased after her. Back at the den, the real Tamari is in her vixen form. Bray is feeding her kits. She looks down at them fondly before looking at Hinata, who was feeding her son Hikaru since she was occupied with Akiko and Akio. Once they were full, Hinata handed Hikaru back to Tamari as she laid down so her kits can go to sleep. But they had other ideas. Akio and Akiko were playing with her whiskers while Hikaru was climbing on her head. I think they want to play. Hinata said while giggling as Hikaru was playing with Temari's ear. Since you three are so full of energy, why don't we get some fresh air? Tamari asked them as she stood up and picked Hikaru off her head. Hinata, I'll be taking Akio, Akiko and Hikaru outside for a bit. Where will you go? Hinata asked. Just outside the den. Tamari told her as she turned back into her human form along with Hikaru. Tamari took a scroll resting on a nearby rock and opened it. She tapped on one of the writings and it burst into smoke, which revealed clothes for a baby. She dressed Hikaru before dressing herself, then she went to Akio and Akiko. She placed her index and middle finger on their foreheads and before her eyes their fur began to rest, giving way to smooth skin, their muzzles pulled back into their faces and soon they are now normal-looking babies. After dressing them, Tamari picks up all three of her children and walks towards the entrance of the den. When she reaches the entrance, the bright sunlight momentarily blinds the little ones before their eyes begin to adjust, and when they did, their eyes widen in awe. They took in the new surroundings, smells and sounds they have never heard before. Tamari smiled down at her children as she watched their amazed expressions. She walked to a spot underneath the shade of a tree and sat herself comfortably before placing them on the grass. The little ones grabbed the grass and pulled out a few blades of grass, and proceeded to put in their mouths. Hold it right there, Tamari warned, as she blocked their hands from reaching their mouths. That's not food, and you just ate. Her children just looked at her before erupting into a fit of giggles. Tamari couldn't help but join them. She played with her children, tickling their bellies, showing them what's around them like the flowers, butterflies and the birds on the trees. Temari's heart was filled with joy and maternal pride as she saw her children take in everything with those curious eyes of theirs. It is important that they get used to their human form for when she and Naruto decide to take them out around the village. She felt a gentle breeze and closed her eyes to enjoy this moment, but the sound of laughter caused her to open her eyes and looked at her babies who were on their backs reaching upwards while giggling. What's so funny? Tamari asked, smiling. The babies responded by continuing to reach up. Tamari giggled before looking up. Now what could possibly be so interesting? She couldn't see anything unusual but the blue sky. How about you take your nap now, huh? She stood up and headed back inside the den, but watching her was a floating eyeball before it turned into sand. Back at Suna, the case cage is sitting in his office with his index and middle finger covering his right eye, before removing it. He leans back on his chair and stares at the ceiling for a few minutes. He had embedded grains of sand into the fibers Temari's clothes so he can use the third eye to keep an eye. But what he saw, he got up from his chair and exited his office. Lord Casecage, where are you going? His secretary asked from her desk outside his office. I'm going to the Leaf, was all Gaara said as he walked away. Family and determination. Lord Casecage, if I may ask, what's the sudden need to visit Konoha? A kunoichi named Matsuri asks as she and Gaara travel across the desert. We're going to visit some family of mine. Gaara said simply. You have family in Konoha? Matsuri asks surprised. I do now, was all he said as they continued on in silence. Back in Konoha, Naruto lay on his back panting heavily. The area around him looked like a hurricane had passed through. Sakura sat in front of him and both looking a little roughed up as their clothes and exposed skin had cuts on them, as well as a couple of bruises. I think that's enough for today. Sakura said as she stood up and walked towards Naruto. No complaints here. Naruto agreed as Sakura stood over him and shielding him from the sun. Thanks for the help, Naruto. She extended her hand out. Anytime, Sakura-chan. Naruto grinned as he accepted her offered hand and she helped him up, but he pulled her close and wrapped his arms around her. Hey. Sakura smiled as she looked up to Naruto's grinning face before leaning his head down and capturing Sakura's lips in a passionate kiss. Sakura moaned in the kiss as she raised her arms to wrap around Naruto's back. Naruto caresses her back as he licks Sakura's lips, asking for permission to enter her mouth. She grants him permission and Naruto's tongue darts inside, exploring every corner of her mouth. Sakura's body shuddered as Naruto assaulted her mouth. Kami. She thought as her hands gripped the back of Naruto's jacket and her own tongue explored his mouth. He tasted delicious. Naruto concentrated chakra on the tips of his fingers on his right hand and ran them down Sakura's spine, causing her to arch her back as a surge of electricity ran through her body. Sakura broke the kiss as she leaned her head back. Naruto took this moment to plant kisses on Sakura's neck, causing her to moan loudly. He then suckled on a spot between Sakura's neck and collarbone, leaving a red mark. Sakura couldn't believe the pleasure she was receiving. She had no idea Naruto was capable of doing this. This is Naruto I'm talking about, he's full of surprises. Sakura thought as another wave of pleasure hit her. If he keeps this up, I'm going to. Sakura closed her eyes briefly, but when she opened them, they were slits before turning back to normal. Naruto brings Sakura's head to rest against his chest. The rhythm of his heartbeat soothes Sakura as she closes her eyes and lets out a content sigh. Naruto gently strokes his hand against Sakura's hair. Sakura-chan. Naruto whispered. Sakura responded, eyes still closed and feeling content. Let's go get some ramen. Sakura's eyes snapped open and quickly raised her head to look at Naruto's grinning face. Naruto, I thought I said. Sakura was cut off as Naruto covered her mouth with his for a brief kiss before parting. I know, I was just kidding, Sakura-chan. Naruto laughed lightly. But do you wanna get something to eat? Well, I did say that I would get you to eat something different, so yes. Sakura agreed before grabbing his hand and leading him out of the training fields. Meanwhile, at the village gates, Temari and Kankuro finally arrived. We barely made it before dark. Temari commented as she stared at the setting sun. We're lucky to have made it within a day considering how long it usually takes. Kankuro added as he rested his hands on his knees. He was struggling to keep up with his sister who ignored his pleas to rest. Anyway, let's find a hotel. I'm just about ready collapse. You do that, I'll go see the Hokage, hopefully she's still in her office. Temari told him without looking back. She reported to the shinobi on guard duty before heading off towards the Hokage tower. Meanwhile, Naruto and Sakura were dining in a restaurant that's popular with young couples. Sakura ordered grilled chicken with white rice and steamed vegetables for herself and Naruto. Let's dig in, Sakura said happily as she took in a spoonful of her rice with steamed vegetables. Naruto looked at his plate with hesitation. It always comes down to eating vegetables. Naruto thought before taking a spoonful of rice and steamed vegetables and slowly brought it towards his open mouth. He cast a glance towards Sakura who was watching him with a smile. He swallowed the lump in his throat before placing the food in his mouth. He chewed for a couple of seconds before swallowing. Well, Sakura asked in anticipation. It's good. You like it? Sakura asked, now smiling. Yeah, Naruto responded as he took another bite, a little surprised that he actually liked the steamed vegetables. Try the grilled chicken next, Sakura suggested as Naruto grabbed a knife and fork to cut a piece of the chicken and put it in his mouth. Delicious. He looked to Sakura and showed a surprised look on her face. What's the matter, Sakura-chan? I didn't know you were capable of using a knife and fork properly. Sakura answered. Do you really think that low of me? Naruto deadpanned. Sorry Naruto, I didn't mean to insult you, it's just. Since all I eat is ramen, you didn't think I knew any table manners, right? Naruto said before taking another bite of his grilled chicken. It sounds mean when you say it like that. Sakura said softly. You would be right though. Pervy Sage had to teach me how to dine properly as he put it, or else no girl would want to have dinner with me, and it's important for a Hokage to have excellent table manners. Naruto explained as he used a napkin to wipe his mouth. The meal was delicious Sakura-chan. Huh. Sakura looked at Naruto's plate and found it empty. You finished already? She then looked to her own unfinished plate. Yeah, I tend to eat fast. Naruto told her. Whenever me and Ino-chan had dinner I always tend to finish first. Oh yeah, your job right. Sakura almost forgot about that. Naruto, you should learn to savor your food. I do savor it, Naruto told her as he reached for Sakura's food with his fork. Hey, you already finished yours, leave mine alone. Sakura warned as she used her fork to swat his away. Why don't you order dessert if you're still hungry? And eat it alone? No way. Dessert tastes better when you share it with someone special. Naruto said smiling and gave Sakura a wink. Sakura's whole face turned bright red. Baka, stop joking around. Who's joking? You're special to me, Sakura-chan. Naruto told her honestly and seriously. Sakura just stared at him for a few moments before looking down at her food. Alright, but I'm not going to eat any quicker, so you're going to have to wait. Sure, Naruto said smiling. Sakura continued eating the rest of her food while avoiding eye contact with Naruto, who was smiling as she watched Sakura eat. Sakura-chan is so cute when she's blushing, Naruto thought. Meanwhile, in the Hokage's office, Tsunade leans back in her chair and stretches until she hears the joints in her spine pop. What a day, she says out loud as she gets up from her chair, but then she hears a knock at her door. Come in, Tsunade calls out as she sits back down on her chair. The door opens to reveal Shizune and Tamari. Milady, Tamari has returned. Kind of late and unexpected, don't you think? Tsunade asked Tamari while raising an eyebrow. I'm sorry about that, Lady Hokage. Tamari apologized. It's alright, I just didn't expect you to arrive the next day. I thought you said you had something planned today. Tsunade asks. I did, but something unexpected happened and it took me longer to complete what I had planned. Tamari told her as an image of a smiling Naruto popped in her head. Nothing serious, I hope, Tsunade said, a little concerned. No, nothing like that, Tamari assured her. Very well then, I assume you have everything settled back home. The Hokage asks. Yes, milady. Very well then. Tsunade rose from her seat and extended her hand out to her. Then let me be the first to welcome you to Konoha as her newest citizen and shinobi. Tamari shook Tsunade's hand. Thank you, milady. I will do the Leaf Village proud as I did with Suna. I'm glad to hear that, Tamari. The will of fire is already burning brightly within you. Tsunade said happily as she let go of Tamari's hand. Tomorrow you'll be initiated as Konoha's newest shinobi and you'll be assigned to your new team. I understand, Tamari said while nodding. If you haven't found a place to stay yet, I can make arrangements for a temporary home until you find one. Shizune offered. Thank you for the offer, but I already have a place to stay and my brother Kankuro is staying at a hotel. Tamari explained. You had an escort this time? Tsunade asked. Gaara insisted on it and he'll be arriving tomorrow to see my initiation as a Leaf Shinobi. Tamari explained, unaware that her youngest brother is already on his way to Konoha. Very well then, get a good night's rest and I'll see you in the morning. Tsunade dismissed Tamari and the former Suna Kunoichi nodded before exiting her office. A good note to end the day, don't you think so, milady? Shizune says in an attempt to look at the positive side. Yes, after having meetings with unpleasant news, this is a welcome change of pace. Tsunade agreed. Back to Naruto and Sakura, the pair are walking down the lit streets of Konoha. Having enjoyed a wonderful dinner, they were conversing on how Sakura can further improve. Naruto, I want to try fighting against a large number of your shadow clones. Sakura said. How many are we talking about? Naruto asked. 15, but I want you to keep replacing the ones that I defeat so that the number stays at 15. Sakura explained. Naruto crossed his arms and scrunched his face. Are you sure that's a good idea? You probably won't last long if I do that. I want to test how much I can take and then improve from there, but I want to go another step forward and ask Ino for her help as well. Sakura said. Ino-chan. Naruto asks, looking at Sakura. Yes, she can also do shadow clones, and I want her to mix hers up with yours but still keep the number at 15. Sakura further explained. Sakura-chan, don't you think you're pushing it? Naruto warned. I know, but I need to push myself if I want to have a chance against Shin and Sasuke-kun. Sakura said as she clenched her fists. Besides, I promised you that we will get Sasuke-kun back together. Naruto smiled and placed his hand on Sakura's shoulder. You're right, but I'm going to make sure that you don't push yourself so hard you collapse. You seem to do that a lot and it's worked wonders for you. Sakura told him, which caused them both to laugh. They spent the rest of the way to Sakura's house in silence before bidding each other goodnight. As Naruto was making his way to his apartment, he could sense someone watching him. He continues his way home while his observer keeps his distance. As soon as his apartment building is in sight, his observer stops following and stays a distance away. Naruto opens the door to his apartment and kicks off his ninja sandals as he steps inside. Home sweet home, Naruto mutters as he goes into his room without turning on the lights and collapses on his bed. He reaches out for the covers, but his hand grabs something soft instead. Huh. Naruto squeezed it several times and finding its softness very familiar. It feels like. Eager to get started, are we? Naruto's eyes widen as he recognized the voice. He quickly sat up on his bed and turned on the lamp sitting on the drawer besides his bed, which revealed Tamari laying under the covers next to him. Tamari-chan. Surprise. Tamari said, smiling as she sat up on Naruto's bed. What are you doing here? Naruto asked as he took in his mate's appearance. She was wearing a sleeveless white shirt that stretched over her massive breast, and she has her hair down. I'm moving in. Tamari said simply. What? Well, only for a little while. We'll have to go look for a bigger place soon. Tamari told him. Wait, just what is going on? Naruto demanded, confused at the current situation. Let's discuss that in the morning, but for now. Tamari pulls Naruto down and gets on top of him. Let me welcome you home, she said seductively as she planted her lips over his. At the village entrance. Phew, we finally made it. Matsuri says in relief as she and Gaara walk up to the shinobi guarding the entrance. Lord Cage, one of the shinobi on guard said, shocked to see the Cage in front of him at this late hour. I'm here visiting family. Tell the Hokage I'll be staying at a hotel and that I'll speak to her tomorrow. Gaara informed him. Why, yes sir. The guard complied as Gaara and Matsuri headed inside. Matsuri. Yes, Lord Cage. Matsuri looked at Gaara expectantly. Tomorrow I'm going somewhere on my own and I need you to cover for me. Gaara told her. What? I thought you were here to visit family. Matsuri kept herself from shouting at what her Cage was asking of her. I am, which is why I need to go alone, and before you ask, I can't bring Kankuro yet. In fact, he doesn't know about them and I want to surprise him when the time is right. Gaara explained and Matsuri saw him smile slightly. Okay, I'll do it, but for how long will you be gone? She asked. Probably all morning, but I'll try to be back by lunchtime. He explained, to which Matsuri noted. Yamanaka house. Inoichi was sitting on the sofa in the living room with a cup of sake in his left hand and browsing through a photo album of Ino when she was little. He let out a sigh as he took a sip from the cup and letting the alcohol run down his throat. He stared at a photo of a younger Ino holding a white teddy bear. Ino. He whispered his daughter's name as he looked next to his wife, who was looking at him worriedly. Are you certain about this? She asked him. The Hokage asked me to do this and I want to know whether or not Ino is pregnant. Inoichi said as he stood up and headed towards the stairs. But you said that the Hokage said that Ino was producing breed milk. That doesn't mean she's pregnant. Mrs. Yamanaka said as she followed her husband up the stairs and towards Ino's room. We'll know soon enough, Inoichi said as they stood in front of the door to Ino's room. He quietly opened the door and peeked inside to see Ino peacefully sleeping on her bed. They both quietly made their way towards the side of Ino's bed. Inoichi carefully placed his right palm against Ino's forehead and closed his but quickly opened them. This isn't Ino. Inoichi whispered in disbelief. What are you saying? Mrs. Yamanaka asks. This is a shadow clone, the real Ino isn't here. Inoichi looked at the clone sleeping in Ino's bed, his mind was a storm cloud of questions. Why was Ino doing this? How long has she been doing this? What was she hitting? Is Naruto somehow involved? Inoichi took a deep breath to calm himself before closing his eyes again. When he opened them, he found himself in a dark place with one door in front of him. He opens the door and finds himself looking through the clone's eyes at Ino. Pleasant dreams. The real Ino says to her clone. Can't say the same for you. The clone chuckled. Yeah, I can't wait till they can sleep through the night. Now I know how my parents felt when they had to take care of me when I was a baby. Ino sighed before disappearing. The clone pulled the covers back before getting on the bed and pulling the covers over herself. Inoichi opened his eyes and removed his palm from the clone. Inoichi. Mrs. Yamanaka watched her husband step back and calmly walk out of Ino's room. She quickly followed close behind and descended down the stairs. Inoichi went into the living room and sat in a meditation position. Inoichi, what are you doing? I'm getting to the bottom of this once and for all. Inoichi said with determination as he closed his eyes and concentrated. He reached his mind out to connect with Ino's but couldn't establish a connection. He then tried to reach out to the kits but couldn't. Sighing, he opened his eyes to look at his wife. Anything? She asked expectantly. Inoichi shook his head. She thought ahead and blocked any attempts I make to connect with her. Mrs. Yamanaka kneeled beside her husband and wrapped her arms around him. Maybe we should try just talking to Ino. Inoichi thought for a moment before answering. But how do you bring up something like this? Listen, Ino, your mother and I know that you're producing Brea's milk and we suspect that you're pregnant. Quote, I know, but you told me that a member of the Yamanaka clan is spying on Ino. Our daughter could be in danger. Mrs. Yamanaka said worriedly. Inoichi smiled at this. I'm not too sure she's in that much danger. What do you mean? I don't know how, but Ino is aware that she's being watched, and if Fu makes a move then Ino will already be aware of it and be ready. Inoichi told her. Inoichi's wife sighed. So we just wait until she tells us herself. Maybe, but we will be having a conversation with her on why she snuck out. Inoichi pointed out. The next morning, Hiyashi Hyuga is facing his eldest daughter on the training fields of the Hyuga compound. Both are in the gentle fist stance and neither have moved for 10 minutes. Watching them is Neji and Hanabi, both waiting anxiously to see who would make the first move. Hiyashi stared into Hinata's eyes trying to get a read on her. Hinata stared back, her intense gaze made Hiyashi nervous. Suddenly Hinata made the first move and thrust her right palm forward, creating a strong vacuum of air heading towards Hiyashi. He thrusted his arm forward and using the same technique cancelled out Hinata's attack, but Hinata moved towards Hiyashi at an amazing speed and before Hiyashi could react Hinata struck him in the chest with her palm. Shote. Hinata whispered as Hiyashi was unable to move and fell backwards but was caught by Hinata before he could hit the ground. I win again, father. Hinata declared as she placed her palm on Hiyashi's chest and sent chakra through his body to free him of his paralysis. Yes, you did. Hiyashi agreed as he felt feeling return to his body. I don't see why you insist on these sparring sessions. It's very obvious that I'm no match for you, so I'm not going to be much help in helping you get stronger, and you've mastered our clan's jutsus. It's not for my benefit, father, but yours. Hinata corrected him, which caused him to look at her with wide eyes. My benefit? Hiyashi questioned. Yes, only by fighting against strong opponents does one improve. Hinata explained while smiling kindly. Hiyashi was taken aback and felt a little insulted, but before he could say anything Hinata continued. Don't take it as an insult, father. You were always stronger than me and trained me hard. I always wanted to be as strong as you, and despite the difficulty of the training I always looked forward to them as I get to train with you. Hinata told him honestly. Hiyashi was touched. He assumed his daughter hated him for being so hard on her and considering her a failure. I had no idea you felt that way. Another benefit of these sparring matches is that I still get to train with you, and that goes for Neji and Hanabi. Hinata said as she looked at her older cousin and little sister, who smiled back. Hinata, if I may ask, how are you continuing your training? I doubt anyone in the village could be a match for you considering how you defeated the entire Hyuga clan without trying. Hiyashi asked. Actually, there are 2 people in the village that are strong enough to help me get stronger. Hinata answered with a smile. 2. Hiyashi, Hanabi and Neji said. Yes, and one of them isn't from the village. Hinata added. By any chance would one of them happen to be Naruto? Hiyashi asked. Yes. Hinata answered without hesitation. Whenever we have some free time, Naruto and I help each other improve in areas where the other excels, and we both work on areas where we both need improvement, and we have a spar to see how far we've improved and what still needs improvement. Hiyashi took in what Hinata just told him. That might explain her sudden growth skill, but Hinata, how long have you been training with Naruto and the other person? About 2 weeks. Hiyashi, Hanabi and Neji were stunned. You managed such an amazing improvement in such a short time. Hiyashi blurted out. Hinata frowned. Are you implying that I was still weak before? Hiyashi realized his mistake and took a step. No, that's not it. I was just. I know what you meant, father. Hinata interrupted. But who's to say I wasn't already stronger than all of you before? What a shame we'll never find out. Hiyashi said while looking away. Yes, what a shame. Hinata said sarcastically. Then we'd better make up for it now. Neji, Hanabi, you two are next. Neji and Hanabi looked at each other nervously before stepping onto the field. At the Yamanaka home, Inoichi and his wife are sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee in their hands. They nurse their drinks as they wait for Ino to finish taking a shower. They didn't have to wait long as they heard the bathroom door open and the sound of footsteps coming down the stairs, and Ino walked into the kitchen. Morning, Mom. Morning, Daddy. Ino greeted her parents as she gave them a kiss on the cheek. Good morning, sweetheart. Inoichi greeted his daughter. Did you sleep well? Ino's mother asked. I slept like a baby. Ino answered, which caused Inoichi to choke on his cough. Are you alright, Daddy? Inoichi coughed several times before speaking. I'm fine. Just went down the wrong way. Ino raised an eyebrow. If you say so. Ino's parents glanced at each other and nodded. Ino, there's something Mrs. Yamanaka began, but was interrupted by a tapping sound at the kitchen window where a messenger hawk is on the other side. Inoichi stood up from his chair and went to the window to open it. He takes the message from the hawk and looks it over. What is it? Mrs. Yamanaka asked. The Hokage has summoned me and Ino. Inoichi informed her as the hawk flew away. He looked at Ino, who nodded, and they were both off. At the Hokage's office, Tsunade is sitting on her desk staring at the shinobi in front of her, which included Temari. Gaara, Kankuro and Matsuri are standing at the left side of her desk while Shizune stands on her right. Tsunade clears her throat and addresses those present. I've gathered you all here to witness the initiation of the Leaf Village's newest shinobi, Temari. The rookie 9 were all surprised, even some of the veteran shinobi present. Tsunade gestured for Temari to step forward, and then she opened a drawer to pull out a Konoha shinobi headband before standing up. Temari, are you ready to defend and serve the village and her people with everything you have? The Leaf Village is now my home. I will defend her and her citizens from all who threaten her. Temari declared without hesitation. Tsunade smiled as she handed Temari the headband. Temari held the headband in her hands and traced her thumb over the leaf symbol. She removed her Suna headband around her neck and tied her new one in its place. Your new team will be Team 7, and Kakashi will evaluate your abilities and report to me later. Also, Team Kakashi has the day off from missions so they can get better acquainted with their new teammate. Temari walked over to stand with her new team, but Tsunade wasn't done yet. Temari isn't the only reason I called you all here. I'm assembling a task force that will consist of 24-man teams, whose mission will be to scour the land of fire to search for any members of the Akatsuki. She started calling out names, which included all the members of Team Asuma. Those whose names I haven't called are dismissed. The ones whose name I did call will be given the mission details. Everyone minus the people whose names were called began to leave, but Naruto cast a worried glance at Ino. Ino. Naruto thought as he exited the Hokage's office, but his glance didn't go unnoticed as Sakura saw the worried look and felt a pang in her chest. Once outside of the Hokage Tower, Kakashi addressed his new team. Alright, we'll head over to the training grounds to begin the evaluation of our new teammate. After that, Temari can use the rest of the afternoon to spend time with her brothers before they leave. Is that alright with you, Lord Casecage? Yes, that is acceptable. Gaara agreed. This will give him time to do what he planned. Then I'll see you 4 at the training ground. Kakashi said as he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Is he always like this? Tamari asked. No one in particular. Unfortunately, Sakura said in an annoyed tone. So what are you guys going to be doing while we're gone? Naruto asks. We'll just be exploring the village for a while. Gaara told Naruto. There's something I want to see. Tamari and Kankuro raised an eyebrow at this. Gaara is acting a little odd, but considering how he was before, they think nothing of it. So where should we meet up? Tamari asks. How about Ichiraku? Naruto suggests enthusiastically, which causes Tamari and Sakura to facepalm. Naruto, we are not going to Ichiraku so you can get your ramen fix. An annoyed Tamari told him. Actually, I don't mind. Gaara told them, causing Tamari and Sakura to blink. Do you even know where it is, Lord Casecage? Sakura asked. Not really, but I can ask someone where it is. Gaara simply said. A meal shared between friends is a good way to strengthen the bonds they share. Sai commented. Gaara thought for a moment about what Sai just said. Yes, you're right. Tamari saw that Gaara had a look in his eye that meant he was going to try something. We'll see you later then. Gaara said as he, Matsuri and Kankuro begin walking away, but not before Kankuro glared at Naruto. What was that about? Sakura asked about Kankuro's glare at Naruto. Don't worry about it, Tamari said. Let's just head towards the training grounds. The group made their way towards the training grounds with Naruto leading the way. Upon arriving, they spot Kakashi leaning against a tree reading his book. I see you've finally arrived. He commented as he closed his book. Alright, before we get started, let's all introduce ourselves to Tamari. You mean like we did when we first met? Naruto asked. Yes, why don't you start us off, Naruto? Kakashi said, giving Naruto an eye smile. Alright, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. My dream is to be the greatest Hokage. Naruto declared, causing Tamari to smile. Also, I want to get stronger so that I can protect the people who are precious to me and complete my promise of a lifetime. Sakura, Kakashi and Tamari had a solemn expression upon hearing the last part. Kakashi then motioned for Sai to go next. My name's Sai, was all he said while smiling his fake smile. That's it? Naruto questioned while raising an eyebrow. Yes, I don't have any dreams of which to aspire to. Sai told Naruto, still with his fake smile. Everyone's sweat dropped at this. Kakashi then motioned for Sakura to go. My name is Sakura Haruno. I recently became aware that I still have plenty of room to improve, and one of my dreams is to become a stronger kunoichi so that can fight alongside my teammates without getting in their way. Sakura started and then her cheeks turned red. My other dream is to. Sakura's eyes widened as she was going to say to marry Sasuke, but then an image of her and Naruto kissing passionately popped in her mind. Wah, Sakura-chan, are you okay? Naruto asked worriedly. Yes, I'm fine. Anyway, that's it. Sakura finished. Kakashi eyed her suspiciously. He could have sworn she was going to say something about Sasuke. But the shocked expression she made suggested otherwise. And now for our newest member. Kakashi motioned to Tamari. My name is Tamari. She stopped herself before she could say Uzumaki. Just Tamari. My dream is to become one of the strongest kunoichi of the elemental nations. And to be a good mother to my children. She thinks the last part. She didn't have much of an example from her parents, but she knew her mother loved her and her brothers, in the same way she loved her children, and she had no doubts that it will continue to grow stronger. Alright, now, let's move on to testing Tamari's abilities. Kakashi told everyone. Naruto, you'll face off against Tamari. Me, Naruto said, surprised as he pointed at himself. You are a very versatile fighter, Naruto. You're the only one here who can properly assess Tamari's skills without either of you having a complete advantage over the other. Kakashi explained, giving him an eye smile. I guess, Naruto said while scratching the back of his head, not sure if he fully understood what Kakashi just said. But that doesn't mean Sakura and Sai won't get a chance to participate. He added, looking at the individuals in question. You'll also spar with Tamari so all of you can be familiar with each other's fighting styles and techniques. The two just nodded as Naruto looked at Tamari. Alright, are you ready? Against you, I doubt anyone will. Tamari joked, causing Kakashi and Sakura to laugh. I'll take that as a compliment. Naruto said proudly as he and Tamari walked away from the others until they are a fair distance away. Don't hold back, Tamari told Naruto as she summoned her fan. I'll try, Naruto told her honestly, Whenever he trained with his mates, he couldn't bring himself to fully go all out. But that doesn't stop them from going all out. Begin. Kakashi shouted, and Naruto immediately summoned several shadow clones that charged at Temari. Temari smirked and opened her fan enough to reveal one moon and swings her fan forward, creating a strong gust of wind that blew the shadow clones away. She brought her left elbow back and hitting a clone in the face, causing it to disappear. You have to do better than that. She mocked as she did a backflip just as a shadow clone appeared and landed behind him and struck his head with her fan, causing him to disappear. She then charged at Naruto, who took up a fighting stance, but to him and everyone's shock she ran past him and kicked a pebble which trundled into Naruto. She saw right through Naruto's clones. Kakashi commented. But how was she able to do that so quickly? Sakura asked as she watched Temari close in on Naruto and swing her fan, making a powerful gust of wind that blows Naruto into the air. Temari seems to be in control of the battle. Sai commented. Temari leaps into the air after Naruto, but as she gets closer, Naruto makes a cross seal and creates a shadow clone that throws him at Temari. She brings her fan up in front of her to block, but he makes another clone that grabs her fan while the real one wraps his arms and legs around her. Gotcha, Naruto says while smiling widely, but Temari just smiles as the wind begins to pick up around them and it begins to make lacerations on his clothes and exposed skin like his face and hands. We're coming up on the ground. Temari alerts him as they both rapidly descend on the ground. Naruto sees this but smirks as the wind around them continues to cut him. You already have that covered. You got me there. Temari agrees with him as just before they hit the ground a cushion of wind forms between Temari's back and the ground, slowing their descent until Temari's back gently touches the ground. I win. Naruto tells Temari with a wink. Don't get ahead of yourself, stud. Temari says in a low seductive voice as her eyes turn to slits. Kakashi senses Temari's chakra spike and a strong gust of wind forms around Naruto's clone, trapping him in a twister. Gah! The clone soon disappears and the wind throws Temari's fan over to where she and Naruto are. Uh-oh! Naruto pulls away to avoid being hit by the fan, but in doing so he lets go of Temari and she catches her fan. Prepare yourself now. Temari warned as she reached into her ninja pouch and threw several shuriken into the air over Naruto. She then swings her fan at the shuriken and encloses the shuriken in wind. What's she doing? Sakura asks as she watches the shuriken descend onto Naruto. Naruto jumps back to avoid the falling shuriken, but as soon as they hit the ground they spring back up and towards him. What the? Naruto is surprised at this and creates a shadow clone to pull him away from the shuriken while the clone gets hit. Temari charges forward. She places her fan on her back and weaves through several hand signs. Wind style. Air bullets. She spews out 3 spheres of air at Naruto. Thinking quickly, he creates numerous shadow clones to take the hit, which resulted in a big explosion that covered the air in smoke. Temari closed her eyes and smiled. She could easily clear the smoke with her fan but decided not to. Instead she sits down in a meditation position and meditated. She heard several puffing noises before hearing the sound of feet hitting against the dirt floor all around her. Temari smiled as she found herself surrounded, but noticed that she wasn't being attacked yet. He's learning. She thinks to herself as she recalls when she was training with Naruto that he tended to rush right into things and she always ended up beating him. What's going on in there? Sakura asks out loud. We'll find out soon enough. Kakashi stated as the smoke began to clear and revealed Temari meditating as she is surrounded by numerous shadow clones. Naruto has her surrounded. Sai commented. Why is she just sitting there? Sakura asks her sensei. Kakashi doesn't respond but instead lifts his headband to reveal his Sharingan. Temari begins to stand but her eyes remain closed. Let's try taijutsu. She snaps open her eyes and dashes towards the real Naruto. The shadow clones begin to attack and Temari ducks to avoid a spin kick, then performing a low spin kick to sweep several clones off their feet. She then grabs one of their feet and using him to strike several clones. The real Naruto charged at Temari and threw a pooch which Temari blocked before ducking down to avoid a kick. She grabbed the real Naruto's arm and flung him over, but a clone jumped to him and threw him back at Temari. She jumped up to avoid him but Naruto's shadow clones jumped after her and engaged her in midair. She's holding her own against Naruto very well. Sai commented as he watched Temari dodge and block the clone's punches and kicks in delivering her own. Yeah, Sakura agreed as she closely observed how Temari blocked and countered Naruto's moves. It's almost like she knows what his next move will be. To further prove this, Naruto was about to use his Naruto barrage as Temari was about to hit the ground. But instead, as each of them made an upward kick, Temari stepped off each kick to do a backflip kick at the clones that were above her. Then she opened her fan all the way and swings her fan below her to unleash a powerful wind jutsu on the clones, causing them to be blown away before disappearing. Incredible. Sakura whispered in awe as she watched Temari land on the ground with her fan behind her fully open, facing the real Naruto. Are you going to keep throwing clones at me? Temari asks. Against you it'll be pointless, especially since you can always tell which is the real me, replied Naruto. You got that right. Temari folded up her fan and placed it back on her back before walking towards Naruto. Kakashi-sensei, we're done. Naruto called out as Temari stood beside him. Kakashi's eyes widened that Naruto called off the match but quickly recovered. Alright then, Sai, you're up next. Okay. Sai went over to where Temari was standing and Naruto is walking back. Good luck, Sai, Naruto told his teammate as he passed him. Thank you, Sai responded as he continued towards Temari until he stood in front of her. Let's have a good battle. He extended his right hand out for Temari to shake. Likewise, Temari shook his hand and felt something off. Alright, if you're both ready, then begin, Kakashi declared. They both jumped back. Sai pulled out a scroll and brush and began to draw. Super Beast imitation drawing. Several ink lions emerge from the scroll and head towards Temari. Temari smirks as she opened her fan all the way. Wind Scythe Jutsu. She swings her fan and released a powerful gust of wind that caused the ink lions to burst back into ink. It appears that I'm at an extreme disadvantage, Sai said out loud as he thought of what his next move will be. Temari pulls her fan back. Dust wind technique. She swung her fan towards Sai, generating a gust of wind that layers the surrounding area in sand. Sai closed his eyes as sand managed to get in them and began rubbing them furiously. Temari used this opportunity to swing her fan into the sky, but nothing happens. Wind style. Wind blade jutsu. Temari swings her fan, creating a single blade of wind that heads towards Sai and slices him in half. Sai. Sakura yells out in horror as she watched her teammate be sliced in two, but then Sai's body turned into ink. An ink clone. Come on, Sakura-chan. Temari wouldn't kill Sai, not yet anyway. Naruto shivered as he imagined Sai saying something that offended Temari and she slices him in half with her fan or tears him to pieces with her claws and teeth. This match belongs to Temari, Kakashi commented without taking his eyes of the battle, causing Sakura to look at him surprised. What makes you so certain, sensei? Sakura teacher before bringing her attention back to Temari. The obvious reason would be that Sai is a really bad matchup against her and another would be. Before he could finish, he saw numerous snakes made of ink emerge from the ground and wrap themselves around Temari and her fan, and then she sinks into the ground, only leaving the half from her mid-chest exposed. I finally caught you, Sai states as he emerges from the ground in front of Temari. You sure about that? Temari asks calmly as she looks up at him. You cannot possibly escape from this, Sai confidently tells her. Don't underestimate me, Temari says as suddenly sand spews from the ground, pressing on her body. Sand. Sai immediately jumps back, but then he notices storm clouds gathering above him and suddenly a tornado begins to descend upon him. Oh no! He attempts to jump out of the way but is unable to. He looks down to see sand wrapped around his ankles. His eyes widen as he's unable to escape and the tornado consumes him. He feels multiple cuts across his body. He feels the sand around his ankles loosen and he's lifted into the air. Soon the tornado disappears and Sai falls towards the ground, but unlike what happened to Tented, Sai was caught by Temari, who was on her fan, and they both gently descended to the ground. It appears that I made a mistake in assuming my victory, Sai said as he groaned in pain. Better to learn that lesson now than during a life or death mission, Temari added as she helped Sai to his feet. That is so true, but at least it helps knowing that you have my back, Sai commented as he smiled his fake smile at Temari. Anytime. Looks like you're up, Sakura-chan, Naruto said as he placed a hand on her shoulder. Why yeah, Sakura stuttered, not even sure if she can be a match for Temari. Don't be nervous, Sakura-chan, just remember what we trained for. Naruto assured her. Thanks, Naruto. Sakura smiled at her teammate, feeling a little more confident now. She walked over to where Tamari is and saw Sai approaching. Good luck, ugly. Sai wished his teammate luck while adding his fake smile. Sakura had a visible tick at this. Thanks, Sai. She said through gritted teeth, trying very hard to resist the urge to pound him into the ground. She continued on until she faced Tamari. Tamari smiled as she decided to mess with Sakura a little. I look forward to seeing what you're capable of. She extended a hand to Sakura. Thanks, I promise not to disappoint. Sakura took her hand and shook it. It was then that she felt a chill go up her spine and she broke into a cold sweat. What was that? Sakura thought as Tamari let go of her hand and stepped back. Kakashi's Sharingan detected Tamari's chakra pour into Sakura and causing a reaction from Sakura's chakra. What just happened? Tamari-chan. Naruto groaned internally as he realized what his mate had done. By pouring a bit of her chakra into Sakura, she caused the fox chakra he poured into her to react. She's established that she's above her as a vixen. Tamari continued to smile as she watched Sakura look visibly shaken. Sorry, Sakura, but I need to establish where you currently stand. Sakura couldn't understand what was happening to her body. 1 minute she was fine, then the next minute she is suddenly feeling like she did when she was a shy little girl. Did Tamari do something to me? Here I come, Tamari declared as she quickly got in front of Sakura, who was caught by surprise. Tamari kicked Sakura on her right side and sent her rolling across the ground, leaving a trail of dust. Sakura came to a stop, but before she could get up she spotted Tamari heading towards her again. She raised her fist to punch the ground, but then Tamari flared her chakra, causing her to stiffen. I can't move, Sakura thought as she struggled to move her body but proved useless until Tamari punches her in the face. Then she grabs Sakura's arm and throws her over her shoulder. Why did Sakura not go through with her attack? Sai questioned. Kakashi narrowed his eyes. Tamari flared her chakra and my Sharingan saw Sakura's chakra almost stiffen. Just what did she do to Sakura? Tamari closed in on Sakura and delivered several punches and kicks at Sakura, who could only put her arms up to block the hits. Why aren't you fighting back? Sakura didn't answer as she didn't know why herself. Tamari crouched down and kicked Sakura's leg, causing her to fall on her back. She pounced on Sakura and pinned her down by her shoulders. You're done, Tamari whispered as she leaned down and opened her mouth. She felt Sakura struggle, but she flared her chakra again, making her stop. Sakura was helpless as Tamari leaned her head to her exposed neck. So this is all you got? Tamari whispered in Sakura's ear. Huh, what happened to that determination I witnessed during the Chunin exams? Are you still that naive girl that needs to be rescued constantly? Tamari grinned as she spoke her next words. I bet that blonde girl would put up a much better fight. You both tied last time, but it appears you're still weak. That last word echoed in Sakura's mind. Shin's and Sasuke's harsh words soon followed. She stared blankly up towards the sky as she was lost in her own mind. The mean names Amy and her friends called her, everyone putting her down and tearing apart her self-esteem. She was beginning to lose herself in the negatives thought until, I believe in you. Naruto's words echoed through Sakura's mind, and silencing the negative words, his bright smile filled her mind. His encouraging and supportive words are filling her with strength. Naruto helping her train to get stronger, always believing in her and her strength, never leaving her side, sacrificing his well-being for her, and then there's the kiss. So full of passion, desire, and love. Tamari noticed that Sakura was unresponsive due to her last statement and proceeded to bite her neck when she felt her chakra spike before her body erupts with chakra pushing her off Sakura. The hell? She looks at Sakura in shock as she gets on her feet. I'll show you who's weak, cha. Sakura declared as her eyes turned to slits and charged at Tamari. Tamari flared her chakra, but it didn't have any effect on Sakura this time. Sakura weaved through several hand signs before declaring, water style, liquid bullets. She spits out 3 water's balls at Tamari. Wind release. Wind cutter technique. Tamari declared as she swings her fan and releases 3 blades made of air that slices through the water balls and continue towards Sakura. Sakura jumped into the air to dodge the wind cutter and weaved through more hand signs, earth style, fist rock technique. Sakura's right arm became encased in stone to form a large stone arm. Kakashi's eyes widen in surprise. When did she learn a technique like that? Kakashi asks out loud. I knew Sakura-chan wouldn't just accept a submissive role. Naruto thought as he watched Sakura descend towards Temari with her stone fist ready. Temari smiled as she readied her fan. Wind Scythe Jutsu. She swings her fan creating a powerful gust of wind, but Sakura brings her stone fist in front of her and pours more of her earth chakra into it to make it big enough to shield her whole body. Clever. Temari whispered as she closed her fan and placed it on her back before making a rat hand sign. Wind Style. Air Current Dance. She places her hands in front of her with her palms open and the wind in front of her starts to pick up and whips up loose dust from the area creating a controlled dust storm. Sakura lifted her arms in front of her to protect herself from the sand, the stone on her right arm crumbled signifying the end of her jutsu. I can't see. She could barely keep her eyes open as sand threatened to get in them, but a chill ran up her spine and her body moved on its own to crouch down and avoided a roundhouse kick by Temari. TCH. Temari soon disappeared back in the sandstorm. Another chill went up Sakura's spine and she did a backflip just as ball of wind passed where she used to be. Even if I can't see, as long as this sensation I am feeling warns me about any incoming attacks, I should be safe. The feeling returned and Sakura moved her head to the right to avoid a punch. She grabbed the arm and threw Temari over her shoulder. But the feeling returned again as she brought her right leg around to block a kick from Temari. Then another chill warned her of an attack coming from above, so she did a spin kick to deflect Temari's attack. She's all over the place. Sakura muttered as she kept blocking and evading attacks from several Temaris, but every time she blocked one of them it would be immediately followed by an attack from another as the previous one would fade back into the dust storm. Suddenly it went on overdrive and she knew something big was coming. She gathered chakra to her right fist and punched the ground causing it to shatter. Whoa! Sakura heard Temari and immediately went in the direction of the voice. She gathered all the chakra she had left to knock out Temari. She threw her fist in front of her and made contact. She managed to see Temari at the other end of her fist. Yes. She cheered before Temari instantly appeared in front of her. Boo! Sakura's eyes widened in horror as she stared into Temari's slitted eyes. She cast a glance at what she hid and it was a clone made of sand. She opened her mouth to speak but then felt the air leave her as Temari punched her in the stomach. Sakura fell to her knees while holding her stomach, her vision already becoming blurry. Good night. Temari said with a smile as Sakura lost consciousness, but just before she did, she could have sworn she saw animal ears similar to a fox pop out from atop Temari's head. Temari caught Sakura before she planted her face in the dirt. Not bad. She brought her arms behind Sakura's knees and lifted her off the ground carrying her bridal style as the dust storm begins to subside. You'll definitely be a force to be reckoned with after you become part of the pack. The dust storm cleared completely and revealed Temari carrying an unconscious Sakura. Naruto immediately goes to meet them followed by the Kakashi and Sai. Is she? She's fine, I just knocked her out. Temari assured Naruto. But she'll be out for a while. Then we better get her home. Naruto takes Sakura home. I need to go over a few more things with Temari. Kakashi informed them as he covered his Sharingan. Sure thing, sensei. Agreed Naruto as he took Sakura from Temari. They shared a look before Naruto was on his way towards Sakura's house. Meanwhile Gaara is walking through the forest outside of Konoha, and looking around for any distinguishing landmarks. However, his presence hasn't gone unnoticed, for the area that contains the den is surrounded by a barrier that alerts Naruto and his vixens the instant anyone sets foot in their territory. Intruder. All four of them thought as they are alerted by the barrier. Ino-chan. Naruto called her telepathically. I'm on it. Ino responded as she was on her way home to prepare for her mission. She went behind an alley and closed her eyes. Seeing through the plant life, Ino sees Gaara venturing further into her territory. This isn't good. What is it, Ino-chan? Naruto asks with concern. Ino shares what she sees with them and they are shocked at what they see. Gaara. What's he doing there? I thought he was supposed to be in the village. Naruto was beginning to panic. Naruto, clam down. Temari ordered. Ino, where is he heading? It appears he's heading towards the entrance of the den. He knows. Naruto yelled internally. We don't know that for sure. Besides, even if he was, he can't find the entrance. Temari assured her mate. But just to be safe, one of us should go to the den just to be sure. Naruto suggested. I'll go, I'm not busy at the moment. Hinata volunteered. Thanks Hinata-chan, I'll be there as soon as I drop Sakura-chan at her place. Naruto informed her as he quickened his pace but not enough to disturb Sakura. I just need to finish speaking with Kakashi-sensei, and I'm there. Temari also informed Hinata. Temari was brought out of her thoughts and saw Kakashi looking at her with a raised eyebrow. Why yes, I was asking you what your thoughts are on Shin. Kakashi asked. Oh, him. Temari thought for a moment. Before she received the intruder alert, Kakashi was filling her in on the new threat named Shin. She heard about him from Gaara just before she left the village to move to Konoha, and Kakashi filled her in on the details about him. From what you just explained to me, Shin sounds like a loose cannon. How do you figure? Kakashi asked with interest. From what you just told me, Shin does pretty much whatever he wants. He's someone who doesn't take orders from anyone, which puts him joining up with Sasuke into question. Temari explained. He's strong enough to go up against 2 shinobi teams, which includes yours. He's also able to take on the insane strength of Sakura's punches. Then there is his swords, which can absorb physical hits and chakra. I'm surprised that someone with that kind of power and skill managed to remain undetected until now. There have been cases where extremely powerful shinobi have disappeared without anyone noticing and reappearing later. Kakashi reminded her. I know that, but Shin somehow doesn't fit that. I believe there's more to him than what he's shown us. Temari told him, a hint of concern in her voice. Then Shin is still a big threat. Kakashi said while sighing. But the question is how big? With his defeat at the hands of Hinata, his threat level has decreased, but that won't stay that way for long. Temari stated. What are you getting at? Kakashi asked. Kakashi-sensei, I want to ask you a favor. Back at the den, a clone of Hinata is laying on her side with all 7 kits snuggled against her when the real Hinata suddenly appeared. Is it just you? The clone asks, raising her head to look at Hinata. The others will be here shortly, but we're going to wait and see if the intruder simply wandered in or is looking for us. Hinata answered her clone as she went to the entrance of the den, which has been sealed off with the surrounding stone. She stops 10 feet away from it before kneeling down in a meditation position and waited. She didn't have to wait long as she sensed Gaara approaching the area. He looked around and confirmed that this is the area he saw. He went towards a spot where the entrance is supposed to be but found the side of the cliff's rock face. The entrance should be here. Gaara muttered, which caused Hinata's eyes to widen. So he is looking for us. Hinata got up and walked towards the entrance and placed her palm against the surface, which caused the rock surface to move into the wall. Gaara was startled as the rock surface in front of him started to move and reveal a person he didn't expect. What are you doing here? Kazekage-sama. Hinata bowed before stepping out into the open. Temari-san, and Naruto-kun will be with you shortly. What is going on here? Gaara asks while narrowing his eyes. It would be best to wait until everyone is here first. Hinata told him calmly. Gaara was silent for a moment before speaking. I want to see them. Hinata's eyes widened at hearing this. You know. Yes. How? Hinata wanted to know. When Temari gets here I will show you. Gaara told her. Then here I am. Gaara looked behind Hinata to see Temari, who is carrying Akiko and Akio, and behind her is Naruto, who is carrying Hikaru. He smiled at seeing his niece and nephews, but the smile quickly vanishes when he sees Ino come out of the cave holding Inoki and Inoka, followed by Hinata's clone holding Katsu and Katsuo. Naruto. Gaara looks at him, which causes him to flinch. Gaara is giving him the ultimate death glare. Naruto could feel the hate and bloodlust emanating from his eyes. Is there something you'd like to tell, before I bury you? Naruto was about to panic, but Temari, Ino and Hinata stood by his side. He definitely has a lot to say, so we better get comfortable. Temari spoke up as she gestured everyone to head inside the cave. Why are you all living in a cave? With infants no less. Gaara asks, his tone hinted his disapproval of their living conditions. This is where we gave birth to them. Temari informed him, making Gaara stop. All of you gave birth to them here? Gaara asks, stunned. Yep. Ino confirmed. Why? Because it was the only safe place. Naruto answered. And that's what foxes do in the wild. They reached a part of the den that was illuminated by sunlight. They all turn to face Gaara and he's shocked at what he sees. Naruto and his mates have sprouted fox ears on top of their heads, their eyes have become slits, and the vixens have 3 dark lines on each of their cheeks that look like whiskers. Gaara, I'm sorry that you had to find out this way, but we are all foxes. Naruto finally told him. Gaara was at a loss for words, he wasn't prepared for this type of revelation. How was Tamari able to hide this from him? How was she able to hide her pregnancy? And for how long were they hiding this secret? Gaara, are you okay? Naruto asks his friend worriedly. How did you become like this? Can you fully turn into foxes? Gaara walked up to them and narrowed his eyes. No more secrets, no more stalling, tell me everything. To answer your second questions, yes, we can turn into foxes, and to answer your first question, it started several months ago. Thanks for listening. In the next part. In the meantime, please leave a review, I would love to hear your feedback. Especially if it helps me improve the overall story.